The V90 here was my very first emulation retro handheld. I saw it on a couple YouTube videos, and the price was pretty fair, so I bit the bullet and I got one. Now, it had a lot of problems. Let's be honest here. The buttons, they weren't great. The screen, it wasn't great. This operating system, it's kind of trash, and it really struggled to play systems we would consider to be the bare minimum standard nowadays, like PlayStation 1. But there was just something about it, right? It was a Game Boy Advance SP that could play more than just Game Boy Advance. It was cool, and it was new, and it was novel, and I loved it. Even though playing actual Game Boy Advance games on this thing was a very frustrating experience due to the aspect ratio. Your screen was either very, very small, stretched all over the screen, or somewhere in between. I ended up getting so frustrated with this, even though I loved the device itself, I was so frustrated with the firmware that I went online and I made my very first forays into the world of emulation Discord and custom firmwares. Flash forward a couple years, and I'm here making videos on all sorts of devices, including Game Boy Advance inspired clamshells that I absolutely love, when, out of the blue, Powkiddy announces a new successor to the V90, the V90S. It has an Allwinner A133 processor, which will comfortably go all the way up to N64 and PSP. It has a much bigger and better 640 by 480 screen, a bigger 3000 milliamp hour battery, and a bargain basement price. It should have been a home run, even though Ambernick already had a stranglehold on the market. But Powkiddy'd, and this thing kind of sucks. Now, I know there are people out there who probably love this for what it is, but objectively, it sucks. The stock operating system is wonky as all get out. It's missing basic features like Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and a closed screen detector, and it somehow lost features compared to the original V90. Not only is there no more headphone jack on the bottom, there's no headphone jack at all. Since there's no Bluetooth, there's no way to listen to this thing on the sly unless you want to bust out a USB-C to 3.5 millimeter adapter. It's just stupid, right? I'm really upset with this thing, especially since the original one was such a beloved and the very first step into my retro handhelds journey. So, much like 4 years ago, if we want the most out of this stupid thing, we're going to need to head online, find a solid custom firmware for the V90S, and fix the thing ourselves. Don't worry though, because help is on the way. This is probably going to be the most obscure reference I've ever made, but Ohio State has like 60,000 students on campus each year, so the math might be on my side and someone else might remember this, but there used to be a panhandler on campus at Ohio State, and he would rap non-stop, and he'd always end his verses with, "Help is on the way."
Have a little fun with the famous out of the bomb. Help is on the way.
He was the only bum that I didn't mind giving a buck or two, and I feel his energy with me right now, because help is indeed on the way, in the form of Knulli Gladiator. Well, how do you install Knulli, you might ask? Well, I'll tell you. First, you need to go to the Knulli Discord to get access to the alpha build. It's still in alpha. It'll probably come out of alpha pretty soon, but for now, you gotta be a patron of theirs. It's like $2 or $3. No, not a big deal. You're gonna wanna download the alpha build and then extract it onto your hard drive. Once that's done, you have a directory with an image file. Open up your flasher of choice. I use Win32 Disk Imager. You select your SD card drive, select the V90's image file, then you hit write. It'll take about 5 minutes to finish, so I don't know. Go take a visit to the toilet or something. If you ever flash custom firmware, this is all just super typical, super standard stuff. Once it's done, you eject the SD card, plug it into your V90S, and you power it on. You'll see the Moth logo and a progress bar, and when it's done, you'll hear that default Botticera game music. Let's immediately turn that down so we can actually talk. So yay, real Botticera is on here now, but what do we do next? Well, you're probably going to want to put some games on here. There are 2 ways to do this. One is to pop out the card and put it back in your PC, which is probably the fastest for your main setup, but there's also an option to change your USB mode to allow for file transfer. I would normally turn that on right now so I could add loose games later over the cord, but at the moment, this version of Knulli is having trouble with transferring files over USB. It's a beta. Well, it's not even a beta, it's an alpha. Long and the short of it is, the files you transfer over your USB are getting corrupted. so it's not a viable method on this particular alpha build of Knulli, but it is something that should and has in the past worked. I'm not going to show you how to do it right now, because I don't want people screwing everything up and breaking their system and corrupting all their files, but it's not working right now, but it should work in the future. Normally, I'd also say we could do it wirelessly, but Powkiddy cheaped the hell out, so we can't, unless we have a dongle, except hardly any dongles work on here. I have dongles that worked on previous Powkiddy devices that don't work on here. It's a mess. It is a mess. Let's just say that. If you're a long-time watcher of Zoo reviews, thank you. And you also might remember that older versions of Knulli required you to mess around and change the formatting of the SD card from within Knulli here. But they fixed that since the last video I did. So honestly, you just drag and drop your stuff over. Once your SD card's back in your computer, move over your BIOS files and your ROMs to the correct directories on the card. I'm using a 64GB card for a good smattering of systems, so it'll take a while. It would have been a lot faster over Wi-Fi, but Powkiddy wanted to save $1. Although I did see in the Knulli Discord they're going to try to work on different dongle compatibilities, so that'd be amazing if they could figure that out. But right now, you're stuck just taking the SD card out like a caveman. Anywho, once all your games are on here, you can load it back in the V90S, and you start it up. Well, now that Knulli's on here, what advantages do you have over stock? Well, despite being an alpha build, this has been way more stable in my testing than the stock operating system that it has shipped with. So that's great. We mentioned before, but this is running Knulli Gladiator, which is kind of new. I think it came out in May. It does have some cool new features like quick resume mode. It has extended power management setting. It has faster launch speeds. And it has an updated version of Drastic for DS emulation. I tell you what, I've used older versions of Knulli on the TrimUI Smart Pro. I've used it on some of the XX devices. In this Gladiator build, it's a subtle yet substantial update, and it's only going to get better on the V90S. I'm really looking forward to increased dongle compatibility so I can actually scrape box art and do retro achievements. What else can we do to fix this? Well, sir, some people think these GBASP designs are uncomfortable, but that's nothing a good grip can't fix. Like this one from my local buddies at JC Studios. It clips into the screw holes on the back and it holds on nice and sturdy. I met them at the local Micro Center for probably the nerdiest swap ever. They're borrowing my RG slide to see if they can make a grip that doesn't affect the slide part, and they gave me this super early prototype. I'm not usually affected by clamshell fatigue, but I can see how this would go a long way to help, because it has little tiny butt doots. Get your fingers more aligned to the triggers. Pretty cool. Other than a new custom firmware and a new grip, there's not really a lot more we can do to fix this thing. My main complaints are things that will require a drill, a soldering iron, and some spare components. Now I know I can use a narrow range of working dongles if I want Wi-Fi in a pinch, but honestly, I mean, you're still talking about having a converter and then a dongle plugged in, and it's just gonna be just awkward. Especially when you're looking at something like the 34XX here. It has Bluetooth and Wi-Fi soldered onto the board. And then there's the headphone jack. I mean, come on. If it had Bluetooth, that would be one thing, but you're just kind of SOL on here, unless you want to put yet another converter into your USB-C port. It's just kind of dumb. So all that being said, what don't we need to fix? Well, first off is the price. With the right combinations of coupons, you could theoretically get this at anywhere between $40 to $50, depending on shipping costs and your location. Powkiddy has a coupon to make this $40, but they also have additional costs for America, even though the tariff situation has pretty much calmed down. So it's $50 from there. It's $51 from Go Game Geek with our RH15 code for 15% off, and you can get it for around $48 on AliExpress. So anywhere from $40 to $50. But all these prices are before sales. The V90 used to go on $30 to $40 sales so often that it became one of the most ubiquitous devices in the community. You'd see them going for $20 in our marketplace. Heck, sometimes they get chucked in for free as part of a combo deal. Hey, you buy these two handhelds, just take the V90. If we can lower the price a little bit on the V90S, then a lot of the problems we have, and they are legitimate problems, but a lot of those problems become less glaring if this is only $30 or $25 on some crazy weekend sale. We also don't need to fix the hinge. Now, I mentioned this in my Flip 2 video, but when companies steal/adopt a proven design, they tend to avoid problems. Retroid, Anbernic, and Powkiddy all cribbed from Nintendo's notes on the SP and the 3DS. Miyu thought they were geniuses and ended up launching a clamshell that will fall apart at the drop of a hat. Powkiddy did not go down this path, and they copied the V90 hinge, which copied the Game Boy Advance SP, so the hinge is solid as hell so far. Although one good thing about this hinge they somehow managed to remove was that satisfying snap. It's like it's about ready to drop a beat. I hate that we lost it. All we get is this. There's no click click. It just closes. The screen on here is actually pretty good too. They went with a 4:3 aspect ratio so this could play a wider assortment of games, but because it's twice the resolution as the original V90, you're fine playing Game Boy Advance on here. There's just a little bit of letterboxing on the sides as opposed to that really shrunken 3x2. And honestly, that's probably the last good thing about this. Well, Gary, the clock on the wall says it's time for What Did We Learn? And we learned that the V90S is the disappointing progeny of one of the all-time greats. It's like LeBron James's kid. That guy would be in the European leagues if he had to make it on talent alone. And the V90S feels like that to me. You had such a pillar of the early retro handheld scene in the V90, and such a disappointment with the sequel. We've gone over a few ways to make the V90S better, like adding Knulli for a better custom firmware experience, or tossing a grip on here for better ergonomics. But let's be honest, we're kinda polishing a turd. Even if Knulli expands Wi-Fi dongle support or adds some other cool features, at the end of the day, the V90S is still pretty mediocre. It's missing basic connectivity features, the controls are just and it's in a weird spot where it's overpowered for what it's built to do. The only real thing the V90S has going for it is price. This is $40 to $50 depending on where you are, and if we can get it closer to $35, maybe $30, then I think it succeeds solely as a pure budget option, because at that price point, the flaws sort of melt away. You can almost contemplate getting a bunch of these as gifts for friends or kids. It's almost like party favors at that point. All that being said, is that enough? Is a decent custom firmware upgrade and a bargain basement price ultimately enough to sway you or me? Well, I can't speak for all of you, but me personally, the answer's no. That's kind of disappointing. Knulli does its best. Third-party grips or little mini dongle towers can help. But at its core, the V90S is too little, too late. If this came out in 2023, we would have all been saying it was the handheld of the year. But it's 2025. Anbernic has made two better clamshells. Miyu tried their best, and Retroid came in and dominated the entire over $65 clam bracket. There's just no real place for the V90S in today's market outside of a niche, super budget option if you can catch a sale. Maybe it'd be good for a brand new user, but then again, that brand new user would have to deal with the crappy stock Botacera build. They'd quickly find themselves on YouTube or Discord trying to find a better option, maybe even watching this video right now, and then beginning their slow descent into a new obsession. Is that good for the hobby overall, fresh meat? I mean, yeah, but is it good for the average Joe trying to get the best bang for their buck? Probably not. If you thought this average Joe was the best bang for your buck, that was strained. Remember to like and subscribe and all that jazz. We just got over 75,000 subscribers, and this train's going all the way to the moon. We're not going to have any air. We're going to have to get helmets and stuff. We'll figure it out, but we're heading on our way to 100,000 subscribers, and I want you, viewer, dear viewer, my best friend, I want you to be a part of it. So smash all those buttons and bells and crap, and we'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.